The Wilson family's two-story house stood in a quiet residential area on the outskirts of Boston. The house, over 40 years old, had endured many harsh Massachusetts winters. Caroline Wilson sighed as she gazed at the accumulating snow from the window of her small room. Working as a pharmacist at the local general hospital, she had just finished another long day. Her chestnut hair was neatly arranged over her shoulders, but her eyes revealed a mix of fatigue and determination. "Caroline. Dinner's ready." Her mother Margaret's voice echoed from downstairs, carrying its usual sharp tone. "Yes, I'm coming," Caroline replied. She closed her laptop, mentally preserving the image of the small house that had been on its screen. After 10 years of diligently saving each month, her efforts were finally about to bear fruit. Tomorrow, she was scheduled to meet with a real estate agent to finalize the purchase agreement. Downstairs in the dining room, the rest of the Wilson family was already seated at the table. Her father George had set aside his newspaper and was silently looking at the casserole that Margaret had brought in. George had worked at a local insurance company for over 40 years and had finally retired last year. His mild-mannered personality had taught him not to contradict his wife's words during their long marriage. "You're late, Caroline," Margaret said severely. Her life had been shaped by maintaining proper values and order. She was a central figure in the church women's group and active in community volunteer work. Above all, she was a woman who valued keeping up appearances for her family. "I'm sorry, I was checking some work documents," Caroline said as she took her seat. From across the table, her sister Rachel waved lightly. "Hi, sis. You must be tired." Rachel taught English at the local high school. Her soft blonde hair fell to her shoulders, and her blue eyes sparkled brightly. On her left ring finger gleamed an engagement ring given to her by her fiancé Brad Collins 3 months ago. "How are the wedding preparations coming along?" Caroline asked her sister.
"Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did with Reddit stories. No face, no voice. Check the link in the description if you're curious."
Rachel's face lit up. "I have a dress fitting next week. You'll come with me, won't you?" "Of course." Margaret interrupted while ladling soup. "Rachel's wedding is the fulfillment of our dreams. Everything must be perfect. The church ceremony, reception, flowers, dress." Her eyes gazed into the distance with a dreamy expression. "There's never been such a wonderful event for our family." Caroline silently took a spoonful of soup. The topic of Rachel's wedding had been the center of family conversations for the past few months. Her mother called it our family's moment of glory, and talked about new ideas and plans every day. "Caroline, when are you going to start taking your life seriously?" Margaret's sudden question made Caroline pause with her spoon. "What do you mean?" "I am serious about my life." "You're 34. That's a good age, but you're still single and living in this house. Look at Rachel. She has a wonderful fiancé and solid plans for the future." "Margaret." George quietly tried to intervene, but his wife ignored him. "I just want Caroline to be happy. A woman only knows true happiness when she has a family." Caroline took a deep breath. From childhood, she had tried to meet her family's expectations. She got good grades, went to a good college, and found a stable profession. Yet in her mother's eyes, she was still the unmarried daughter. Rachel smiled awkwardly. "Sis is a career woman, so she must be busy. But maybe there'll be some nice meetings at my wedding." Caroline forced a smile. Tomorrow, she would sign the contract to purchase her own house. And that would be the first step toward leaving this oppressive home. But when she thought about telling her family about her decision, she felt anxiety tightening her stomach. Especially when she imagined her mother's reaction, she almost sighed. "Actually, I'll be leaving work early tomorrow. I have something to do after work." "Working overtime again?" "You work too much," Margaret shook her head. Caroline continued eating in silence. In this family, she had always been expected to be the good daughter. But after 34 years, she was tired of that role. Tomorrow, her life would change significantly. And she quietly hoped that someday her family would understand. The next day, Caroline concentrated on her work in the hospital's pharmacy department. While checking patient prescriptions, she couldn't stop thinking about the contract meeting that afternoon. Her colleague Jennifer stood beside her with coffee. "Today's the special day, right?" Caroline smiled. "Yes, it's finally the day I sign the contract." "Congratulations. You've worked so hard for 10 years, Jennifer said, genuinely happy. "That house is perfect for you." "Thank you," Caroline answered quietly. "Honestly, it doesn't feel real yet. I've always followed my family's expectations, so making a decision just for myself is a little scary. But this is your life. You can make decisions for yourself, not for anyone else." Caroline nodded deeply. The house she found was a small single-family home about 15 minutes by car from the hospital. It had a spacious yard, an east-facing kitchen where morning sunlight would stream in, and a living room with a bay window where she could create the reading nook she'd always dreamed of. Everything was exactly as she had imagined. At 4 in the afternoon, Caroline arrived at the real estate agent's office. "Ms. Wilson, we've been expecting you," Jason Martin greeted her. "All the paperwork is ready. All you need to do is sign." Caroline took a deep breath. This day has finally come. It's the result of 10 years of saving and hard work. Congratulations. She checked each document carefully as she signed her name. After signing the final page, Jason handed her a small key. "Officially it starts next Monday, but you are now a homeowner. Here you go." Caroline took the key and felt its weight. This was the beginning of her new life. When she returned home, Caroline sat in her car, deep in thought. Tonight, she would have to tell her family. When she thought about her mother's reaction, she felt anxiety tightening her stomach. But there was no turning back now. She clutched the key, gathered her courage, and entered the house. "I'm home." "You're late," Margaret poked her head out from the kitchen. "It's Friday. Working overtime again?" "I had something to do," Caroline said. "I'd like to talk to the family about something. Can we discuss it after dinner together?" Margaret looked slightly puzzled, but answered, "Yes, of course." At the dinner table, the conversation was dominated by talk of her sister's wedding as usual. Rachel was excitedly talking about the newly decided cake design. "Sis, we've also decided on the bridesmaids' dresses. Light blue, and it will surely look good on you." Caroline smiled and nodded. "I'm looking forward to it." After dinner, while eating dessert pie, George asked, "Caroline, you said you wanted to talk about something." The room fell silent. Caroline took a deep breath and pulled the key from her pocket. "Actually, I bought a house." "What?" Rachel exclaimed in surprise. "What do you mean?" Margaret's expression changed instantly. "I've been saving bit by bit for 10 years. Today, I finalized the contract. I can move in next week." George was silent for a moment, then slowly said, "That's sudden. But having your own home is wonderful. Congratulations." "George." Margaret stopped her husband. Her face was red with anger. "Caroline, what are you thinking? Why do you need a house when you're not even married?" Caroline answered quietly, "I want to start my own life. Besides, this house is also for when I might have a family someday." "Don't talk nonsense." Margaret's voice rose. "Women buy houses after they get married. Someone like you buying a house while single looks bad to others. Nowadays, it's normal for women to live independently." "Normal?" Margaret said mockingly. "You've always been selfish. Have you ever thought about your family? What do you mean? Caroline was confused. Margaret sighed deeply. Your money should have been used for Rachel's wedding. A heavy silence fell over the room. What? Caroline asked in disbelief. You were counting on my savings. A lavish church wedding, 300 guests, a reception at an upscale restaurant, we had it all planned, Margaret said. It's only natural for the whole family to contribute to Rachel's special day. But that's my money. I saved it desperately for 10 years, Caroline's voice trembled. Sis, Rachel also spoke up. My wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime special day. You only ever think about yourself. Caroline was stunned. Tears welled in her eyes. Are you kidding? I've always sacrificed myself for the family. In college, I chose the path that Mom wanted, and after graduation, I started working right away to help with the household. And yet. That's exactly why. Margaret exclaimed. You are the eldest daughter of this family. It's only natural that you wish for your sister's happiness. Caroline slowly stood up. I have the right to walk my own path in life. I won't change this decision. Caroline Wilson. Margaret's voice rang sharply. If you leave this house, consider yourself no longer part of this family. Margaret, that's going too far, George quietly intervened, but his wife ignored him. No, George. Family means sacrificing for each other. Caroline doesn't understand that. Caroline took a deep breath and said in a controlled voice, I love my family. But that doesn't mean giving up my right to live my own life. Next week, I'm moving out. She clutched the key and headed upstairs to her room. Behind her, she could hear Margaret's angry voice mixing with Rachel's crying. When she entered her room, Caroline collapsed on the bed and released the tears she had held back for so long. The weekend was a long 2 days for Caroline. She shut herself in her room and began packing minimal belongings. She didn't respond to her mother's calls and took her meals in her room. Her smartphone displayed numerous missed calls from her mother, but she ignored them all. Deep down, she wished her mother would understand and forgive her, but she felt such a possibility was slim. On Monday, Caroline left home early and headed to the hospital. Work in the pharmacy department was busy, and she spent the day checking prescriptions and dispensing medication. Her colleague Jennifer expressed concern about her tired appearance. Are you okay? You don't look well. Caroline smiled weakly. I told my family. The reaction was exactly as I imagined. Oh my. Jennifer placed a hand on her shoulder. That must have been tough. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Thank you. I decided to move this weekend. It would help if you could lend a hand. Of course. We'll all help you. After finishing her shift, Caroline drove with the key to her new home clutched in her hand. However, her destination wasn't her new house, but her family home. She needed to collect necessary documents and mementos. She also hoped to repair relations with her family, if possible. When she arrived at her family home, not only her mother's car but also her sister Rachel's car was parked in front. Caroline took a deep breath, gathered her courage, and opened the front door. I'm home. There was no response. However, she heard Margaret's voice from the living room. We're in here. When Caroline entered the living room, Margaret and Rachel were sitting on the sofa, looking at her with solemn expressions. On the table were wedding planning documents and catalogs. Sit down, Margaret said. Caroline sat in a chair. Did something happen? Caroline, Margaret began speaking in a quiet but authoritative voice. We've discussed this as a family. Though we can't accept your decision, we're willing to forgive you under certain conditions. Conditions? Rachel took out a paper. This is the estimate from the wedding planner. The entire wedding will cost nearly $50,000. And? Caroline asked cautiously. Margaret spoke up. We want you to contribute part of the money you used to buy the house to Rachel's wedding. At least $30,000. Caroline was dumbfounded. Are you joking? I've already paid the down payment and signed the contract. The rest of the money is for moving and starting my new life. But this is Rachel's special day. Margaret's voice gradually rose. As family, you have a responsibility. Mom, I've been saving bit by bit every month for 10 years. That wasn't for family but for my own future, Caroline answered quietly but firmly. Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. Why are you so cold? Are you trying to ruin my special day? Rachel, I wish for your happiness. But I don't think you need an extravagant wedding that costs all my savings. True happiness isn't about appearances. Appearances? Margaret stood up. Her face was red with anger. You always betray the family. That money is for the family. No, it isn't. Caroline also stood up. This is money I saved for myself. I have the right to start my own life. Rights? Margaret's voice rang sharply. You were born as a member of this family. Individual rights have no value compared to family bonds. The air in the room felt frozen. Caroline felt anger and sadness swirling in her chest. She carefully chose her words before responding. I love my family too. But that doesn't mean sacrificing my life. Rachel, I want you to be happy. But that should come from a marriage built on true love, not an extravagant wedding that costs all my savings. Such pretty words. Margaret scoffed. You always justify yourself that way. But you're really just a self-centered woman. Caroline silently stood up and went upstairs to her room. She gathered necessary documents and took out photo albums of memories. Time spent in this room since childhood flashed through her mind like a montage. After packing, she returned downstairs. Margaret and Rachel were still in the living room. I just came to get what I need. I'm leaving now, Caroline said quietly. Wait a minute, Margaret blocked her way. We're not finished talking. Mom, that's enough. I've made my decision. I'm leaving this house. So you're abandoning this family, tears welled in Margaret's eyes. The daughter I raised so carefully. Carefully. Caroline smiled sadly. Mom, you've always cared more about appearances and your own values than about me. Be quiet. Suddenly, Margaret's hand grabbed Caroline's hair. With a shocked expression, Caroline watched as Margaret took out a lighter with her other hand. This will wake you up. As Margaret brought the lighter flame close to Caroline's hair, fear enveloped her. In an instant, the fire caught her hair. Ah! Caroline screamed. Smoke rose from her hair, and the smell of burning spread through the room. Margaret! What have you done? George, who had rushed from the back of the house, shouted. He quickly fetched water from the kitchen and poured it over Caroline's head. Caroline sat on the floor, trembling. Part of her hair was burned and falling on her shoulders. Tears streamed down her face. They weren't from pain, but from the shock of the reality that her own mother would go this far to reject her. I'll never come back, Caroline said in a trembling voice. She stood up, holding her wet hair with her hand, and headed towards the front door. Behind her, she heard Rachel's voice. You brought this on yourself, sis. You're the one who betrayed the family. Caroline didn't look back. As she opened the door and felt the cold air outside, tears spilled down her cheeks. This might be the final goodbye, but she was determined to live her own life. Caroline's moving day was a sunny Saturday. Her new home was a small house surrounded by a white picket fence, with an old maple tree swaying in the wind in the front yard. The neighborhood was a typical American suburb with similar houses lined up in a row, where children could be seen playing in the streets on weekends. Where should I put this box? Jennifer asked, carrying a cardboard box in from the entrance. Behind her, hospital colleagues were unloading luggage from cars. Put it on the kitchen counter, Caroline smiled. 5 days had passed since the incident. The left side of Caroline's hair was burned short, and she had cut the rest to match, now sporting a short hairstyle. There was a small burn mark at the edge of her forehead, but the emotional wounds were deeper than the physical ones. "You're really blessed to have so many friends," said Mike, Jennifer's boyfriend, as he carried in a large sofa. "Everyone, thank you so much," Caroline said with heartfelt gratitude. Without her friend's support, she couldn't have made it through these past few days. By noon, most of the luggage had been moved in, and the kitchen was lined with pizzas and sandwiches brought by friends. They gathered in the living room of the new house, enjoying light snacks. "A toast." Jennifer raised her plastic cup. "To Caroline's new life and her courage." "Cheers." Just as everyone clinked cups, the doorbell rang. Caroline stood up, puzzled. Who could that be? I wasn't expecting anyone else. When she opened the front door, Brad, Rachel's fiancé, was standing there. The slender man wore a serious expression, unlike his usual gentle demeanor. "Brad? What's wrong?" Caroline asked in surprise. "I need to talk to you. Can you spare some time?" Brad's voice was quiet, but determination shone in his eyes. Caroline signaled to her friends, saying, "I'll be right back," and went out to the porch with Brad. They sat on a wooden bench. "Caroline, I wanted to hear directly from you." Brad looked straight into her eyes. "Rachel told me that you selfishly used the family's wedding fund to buy a house." Caroline slowly inhaled. "Is that what she's been saying?" "Yes." "And?" Brad hesitated slightly, as if choosing his words. "About cutting your hair, she said you cut it on a whim." But something felt off about what Margaret was saying. Caroline silently brushed back her bangs, revealing the burn mark on her forehead. Then she quietly began telling the truth. About the money she had been saving for herself for 10 years, the family's reaction when she told them, and even the terrifying moment when her mother set fire to her hair with a lighter. When she finished speaking, Brad's face had turned pale. "I can't believe it. Margaret did such a thing." "I couldn't believe it either," Caroline said quietly. "But this is the truth. Actually." Brad lowered his voice. "Rachel and I have been arguing recently. She suddenly started wanting a lavish wedding, making plans that far exceeded our budget. I wanted a simple, meaningful ceremony. And so your savings were the source of those funds," Brad said bitterly. "Rachel has been saying lately, 'Don't worry, my sister will pay for it.'" Caroline nodded quietly. "That's what Mom was saying." Brad stood up, took a few steps, then turned back. "There's one more thing I want to tell you." "Actually." Brad's expression softened. "I knew what you were doing." "What?" "The environmentally friendly furniture design company you run under the name Innovative Living. The office furniture at my company is your design." Caroline opened her mouth in surprise. Alongside her hospital job, she had started an online sustainable furniture design business. Though small, it was growing steadily and had become well regarded among young business owners in the area. However, she hadn't told her family about it. "How did you know?" "I work in architecture." "Your name has been mentioned in the industry," Brad smiled. "Plus, your letters arrived at Rachel's house." It was a new catalog, but she didn't even look at it. Caroline nodded with mixed feelings. "I haven't told my family. I didn't think they would understand." "That's a shame," Brad said seriously. "You have talent. And now, there's one more thing you should know." "What?" "You were planning to do something even more wonderful." Brad took an envelope from his pocket. "This is the money you had set aside for your family home repairs, and a plan for a surprise gift for Rachel's and my honeymoon." I found it in Rachel's desk drawer. Caroline stared at the envelope. It was documents she had left at home a few months ago. While planning to buy her own house, she had also made plans for her family. Why? Rachel found it but apparently didn't read it. Brad shrugged. She's only been thinking about herself lately. They sat in silence. The spring breeze passed between them. Caroline, Brad said, as if having made up his mind. I'm going to break off my engagement with Rachel. What? Now that I know the true nature of her and her family, it would be wrong to continue with the marriage. I don't want to be involved with such a family. Caroline was perplexed, but saw the conviction in his eyes. Really? Don't you love her? I thought I did. But this isn't about love, Brad answered quietly. Caroline, I can't pretend I didn't see how you were treated. And seeing that Rachel silently approved of it, and even lied about it, shows me what she truly values. Tears welled in Caroline's eyes. I'm sorry. Because of me. No, Brad took her hand. This isn't your fault. I'm glad I learned the truth. Before the wedding. He stood up and knelt before Caroline. Please forgive me. I should have realized sooner. It's okay, Brad, Caroline smiled slightly. You're a good person. Rachel was lucky, but she didn't realize it. Brad stood up and started to descend the porch stairs but turned back and said, I'm going to talk to Rachel tonight. After that, whatever happens. I understand, Caroline nodded. Take care. After Brad left, Caroline sat on the porch for a while. In her heart, complex emotions were swirling, but strangely, she also felt refreshed. The summer sun brightly illuminated Caroline's garden. In the backyard of her new home, friends had gathered for a grand barbecue party. 3 months after moving in, the house had completely transformed into a warm space reflecting Caroline's personality. Caroline, did you design this furniture yourself too? Her colleague Mark asked, stroking the wooden table in the living room. Yes, using sustainable wood, Caroline smiled in response. Her company, Innovative Living, had gained a reputation locally and was being noticed as a pioneer in environmentally conscious furniture design. During the party, her smartphone rang. The display showed, Dad. Caroline hesitated slightly but pressed the call button. Hello, Dad. Caroline, George's voice sounded tired, but somehow liberated. Can we talk for a bit? Of course, she moved to a quiet place. Yesterday, I met with a lawyer. I've started divorce proceedings with your mother. Caroline was surprised, but somehow felt she had anticipated this. Dad. No, this is my decision, George said calmly. For years, I've been submissive to Margaret. But after seeing what she did to you that day, I realized I needed to change too. After a moment of silence, George continued, I'm grateful for your courage. I want to start my life over too. Dad, I support you, Caroline said, controlling her emotions. And George's voice trembled slightly. Do you know about Rachel? I heard a little from Brad. After the day Brad broke off the engagement, Margaret's plans for a lavish wedding were ruined. In the community, rumors of the incident where Margaret set fire to Caroline's hair spread, and Margaret began to receive cold looks even at the church women's group. Rachel also became socially isolated, with colleagues at school keeping their distance. Rachel is emotionally devastated. Mom keeps blaming her, asking, why couldn't you keep Brad? George said sadly. Caroline remained silent, harboring complex feelings. She didn't hate her family, but she knew it was time to prioritize her own happiness. Caroline, George's voice softened. I'd be happy if we could meet again someday. Of course, Dad. You're always welcome. After hanging up, Caroline returned to the garden. Her colleagues, friends, and neighbors were people who recognized her true worth and supported her. For the first time, she realized that family doesn't necessarily mean only blood relatives. As twilight approached, Caroline stood on the porch of her house, savoring this peaceful moment. Her new hairstyle made her look younger and more vibrant than before. Even the scar on her forehead now seemed like a badge of honor, a testament to the hardships she had overcome. This house was more than just a building, it was a symbol of her independence and growth. And most importantly, this place had become a true home for her, a place where she could feel safe and be herself. She had no regrets about her decision. "Caroline, we're cutting the cake," Jennifer's voice called out. Caroline turned with a smile. "Coming." She took a deep breath and walked toward the new life she had created for herself.